What's shaking, everybody? Welcome to a Friday edition of House Divided. I'm Jeff Ketchum. That is Chad Hastings. We are both the men in black today. It occurred to me I have a unusually one-sided collection of T-shirts. They're either black or red. I don't wear red a lot.
Black and red. I got a lot of black and gray working in my closet. I'll mix in a little bit of color at times, but generally with me, black or gray.
I might need to start whipping out the Liverpool and Phillies shirts on the regular. Guys, we're going to be with you for the next hour plus, depending on when buy or sell concludes at the top of the 1 o'clock hour. Do us a solid. Hit the like video. Hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Get notifications. Bing, bang, bong. All those things we ask you to do every single day. We're jumping right in to the college football discussion today. Longhorns pick up yet another member for the, member of attrition. They went into the portal, Chad. Like, no matter how I'm trying to say it, they went fishing in the portal and they came out with Alabama tight end Amari Niblack on the hook. It is another indication that Steve Sarkisian is going for it. It is a player that fills a major need when you look at the loss of Ja'Tavion Sanders from the Texas depth chart. But more than anything, I think there seems to be a lot of symbolism in this pickup that Texas is viewed as a team on the rise. And for whatever reason, last night seemed to be the spilling point. When Niblack commit, it was like make fun of Alabama night on social media. Even I got into the mix last night, Chad, by saying that Alabama made for a nice AAA affiliate for the Texas football program, which was way more about insulting Alabama than anything else.
Right.
Like, get your kicks in while you can before they rebuild and reload. Your initial thoughts on there's so many angles to it. For you, the thing that jumped out more than anything else with his addition was what?
Well, I think him being an offensive player probably helps to create that joking that you're talking about. There's also a quarterback we can get into today that was a freshman that I think that adds to it. When it happens on the offensive side, even those people that don't know who Caleb Downs is, when they hear a tight end and then a young quarterback, that's going to create those jokes. But as far as the Niblack thing for me, what it immediately shows me is it kind of goes back to the rep of Ja'Tavion Sanders. Sanders is looked at as maybe the second guy right behind Bowers for this draft. And like you and I have talked about, it's not necessarily because of massive production at Texas. Niblack has twice as many touchdowns this past year as Sanders did. That number's 2. You and I were talking about it, and you said, what was it, like 4 or 5? I'm like, yeah, something like that. And I look it up, and I'm like, wait, 2? But it was. And then Niblack's at 4. So big get for Texas. It tells me what a guy like Niblack obviously thinks of Texas. And then my next thought, Ketch, goes to how will he be used? Just how versatile will he be? Steve Sarkisian loves the word. I think this is a guy you can be versatile with. 6'4", 233. You put an instant analysis together on orangebloods.com. I would encourage people to go look at it, not only for your thoughts, but for those 2 videos you put in. Go back and look at the touchdown he scored against Texas and tell me if that's your normal everyday tight end, because I would argue he is not that at all.
He's a really big wide receiver who isn't used as an H-back. It's really strange. Alabama used him as an inline player, but he's a horrible blocker. Like, that's not what he does. It's not. But usually your inline tight end is the better blocker than the receiver. Alabama lined him up as the inline tight end and almost exclusively used him as a downfield passing target. He's a passing threat. And it's another reminder that this Texas team lost Xavier Worthy, Adonai Mitchell, Jordan Whittington, and Ja'Tavion Sanders to the NFL or graduation, however you want to look at it. And Steve Sarkisian, forget about everything else that's on his roster, because they've got guys. They've got Jonte Cook at wide receiver. They've got Gunnar Helm at tight end. They're not completely void of talent in a lot of these positions, but they lost those 4 guys, and they've now gone out and got Isaiah Bond, Matthew Golden, Silas Bolden, and now Amari Niblack, all through the portal. all in like the span of a couple of weeks, they've really changed everything that we thought about what the Texas offense might look like in 2024. But now you also get to add in all of the other skill guys that we know they have. You mentioned Helm. You mentioned John Tate Cook. Now you throw in 5-star Ryan Wingo, and you throw in Aaron Butler, who signed right after signing day, and you throw in DeAndre Moore and Ryan Niblett, and I think you've got the deepest set of talented skill guys in the country, certainly at the wide receiver position. And you mentioned it. Now it's like fantasizing about how do you get all these guys on the field, and well, what formations will they use more than others? It's a really big pickup simply because it's an attempt to replace. Texas ran so much 12 personnel last year with 2 tight ends on the field. Without Niblack, you look at the rest of the roster, and outside of Gunnar Helm, I don't know who plays. I don't know who's good enough to play for a team that has national championship aspirations. One of the really underrated parts of bringing in a guy like Niblack, who started 5 games in his Alabama career, has played a lot. He's played in a playoff game. He's won an SEC championship. This isn't, you can bring a guy like Matthew Golden over and see him from Houston and say, well, that guy really hasn't played any big games in his life. How does he play against the likes of Oklahoma in the Cotton Bowl or Georgia when they come to town? That's not really what he's been. But one of the things about Niblack is he's been through the SEC wars. He's got rings. He's got a ring on his finger. He's played in multiple major bowl games. This is a bona fide, proven talent. And Texas got a little bit better yesterday, and they've done that a lot. They got better. Every single one of these guys they brought in from the portal feels like a guy that's going to make a difference next season. And it's the biggest single way that Steve Sarkisian has kind of changed his attitude about the portal. And I'm going to write about that this week. Sarkisian has gone from a guy who was very openly, I'm pro high school. I want the majority of this team to be about high school. That's the foundation. And he would probably tell you that it still is, right? I mean, at the end of the day, this is their 7th portal edition. They just signed 20-something guys from high school, so the numbers are still very one-sided. What feels different about this for me, Chad, is that 2 years ago, he was bringing in depth pieces. He wasn't taking guys that would dare get in front of his highly recruited guys. You think about that offensive line class in 2022, I was an advocate for, okay, you did great. You signed 7 offensive linemen in 2022. Go into the portal, get a couple of 1-year rentals who make you immediately better, and then you don't force your freshmen to have to play. I mean, it was fine with Kelvin Banks, as it turned out, but Cole Hudson starting all year that year at guard, it wasn't. They could have been better there. Does that change the record? I don't know. Probably not. The difference between one more experienced guy or not. But the whole point of this is, philosophically, they didn't want anybody getting in front of their young guys. They didn't want Kelvin Banks's development stopped. They didn't even want Cole Hudson's development stopped. They wanted the young guys to be able to ascend and grow. When you look at what they've done now through the portal, and even a guy like Jabbar Muhammad, who threatens to cut in front of a guy like Terrence Brooks, who's a pretty good player, they're taking guys, and I think it's really evident at wide receiver, they're taking guys that may move right in front of young guys. And so Sarkisian can say the high school thing is still at the epicenter of the program, and he's not wrong. But there has been, I think, a dramatic shift, and they're not done in the portal either. They may end up getting double-digit portal guys this year, and all of those guys will be on the 2 deep. And what does that mean? It means that some young guys that are below them won't be getting on the 2 deep. And it is a change from the way Sarkisian has run the program in the past, where the development of young players trumps all. I don't think that exists in 2024. And I think it's really smart on Sarkisian to have evolved. There was a lot of Dabo, Chad, and Steve Sarkisian early on with the portal. And now he's been way more aggressive. And I think this team next year will be better for it.
Yeah, I don't know that there was a lot. Texas, I don't know if there's a lot of Dabo in anybody but Dabo. Interesting you mentioned that too. And we'll get to some of that stuff. There's a super chat. Peyton, we see you. You're a little off of this topic, but we'll get to you in a second. Just want to clean off a couple other things. Thanks to almost 300 folks already in the Specs chat. I like this one early. Christopher says, it's funny how every Bama player that they lose was never any good and overrated. Somebody else says very much like the Aggie losses. And that used to be the old way. That used to be the old way, Ketch. When you're a fan base and you lost a guy in the portal, you convinced yourself that they weren't needed. You convinced yourself that they weren't good. But I saw a tweet about 20 minutes before we went on, somebody laying out the full list of 24 portal entries for Bama. There are 4 5-stars. There are 9 4-stars. And then the rest of them are 3-stars. And Ketch, Texas got one of each. Bond is listed here as a 5-star, Nyblack as a 4-star, and Blackshire as a 3-star. So the Bama fans and A&M fans would be on a different, maybe in a different, section of it. But still, all those fans are just having to come to the realization of sometimes, you lose a guy in the portal and you could say, well, he wasn't going to play anyway, and he wasn't going to do this, and he wasn't going to do that. But Catch, Bama fans know deep down that's not what they think of Bond and Nyblack. They might be able to tell me that about Blackshire. They can't tell me that about the other 2 guys.
By the way, a little bit of breaking news here. I see Blake posted in the Slack channel, and it does have a Texas implication.
Mm-hmm.
Former defensive tackle commitment, or signee actually, DeAndre Robinson has announced that he's going to Florida.
Okay.
And not a huge surprise. Florida finished second. The moment DeAndre Robinson put his name into the portal, that was a thought of where he would go. It's the thing about that is it's hard not to think that he won't be in the portal again at some point, because although I guess technically I don't know what you call a guy. I guess technically he didn't portal because he never enrolled in class. So he's like Xavier Worthy was just released from his letter of intent. But what is he walking into at Florida? It's really fascinating. What the Bo Davis departure thing for DeAndre Robinson told me, Chad, is that kid didn't really want to go to Texas. He picked Texas. And look, there's a million reasons why maybe he did, right? They were the hot team. They're in the playoff. He had a good relationship with Bo Davis. But the Bo Davis thing happened. He was gone like that and completely prepared not to move to Austin. It's probably a good thing for both parties that happened. As really talented as he is, I think to me, my instincts tell me that's a guy that had second thoughts no matter what. He did have second thoughts in the football season, thinking about Florida, but always stayed true to Texas. But man, he's volunteering to go to a school whose coach is on the hot seat. And, is he in the portal next year along with a lot of other Florida guys because they committed their careers to a coach who doesn't survive the long haul? We'll see. But, I mean, look, good luck to DeAndre Robinson. Again, you'd rather that guy be happy and be where he wants to be than feel like he's chained to a decision that he regrets. One of the cool things about the portal is that guys don't have to feel, like they made one bad decision and now they can't ever get out of it. But good luck to DeAndre Robinson going to Florida. I guess that one is finally put to bed.
Yeah, Catch, I want to get some more of your thoughts on Nyblack, but real quick, since you mentioned Sarkisian and Dabo, this is pretty wild for the people that may not realize it. I'll admit I didn't. If I'm reading the numbers correctly, Steve Sarkisian just got one more guy out of the portal from Bama than Dabo's gotten ever out of the portal. The whole time the portal's been the portal, Dabo has 2. That's it. Not 2 this year, not 2 in a cycle, 2 ever. And Sark just got 3 from Bama in this cycle. So it's one of those things of so if that philosophy was that way, Ketch, if he was anything like Dabo in the past, then you scream hallelujah as a Texas fan that he's woken up and realized what this has to be. Because I am fascinated from the other side. I'm not being a massive Clemson fan. I'm just going to sit back and watch this happen. Can Dabo and Clemson actually keep up if they completely ignore the portal? We're going to find out.
Well, look, they're chasing Florida State now in the ACC, a team that completely reinvented itself through the portal. I think one of the things that you'd say about Mike Norvell is everybody will point to Mel Tucker, remember, because he went through the portal and they had that big season at Michigan State. But Florida State's been able to do it in a way where it's not a one-hit wonder. They've been able to sustain that success and actually build on it through the portal. Although Florida State not nearly as active this year in the portal as they have been in the past, I think largely because other schools are catching up. Mm-hmm. Take a gander at how many top 50 prospects in this year's Rivals Top 50. The number of players committed to Florida State, king of the portal in the last few years.
Top 50, you said?
Yes. 1.
Oh, wow. I was going single digits, but I wasn't going that low. I was going to say like 6.
Hey, Blake, do me a favor. That the numbers that I sent you earlier, so Chad, I broke it down because I just haven't been doing enough number crunching today. I broke down, this is the Rivals list of schools and how many top 50 portal prospects they've signed.
Okay.
Oregon has 5. They lead the way. Mm-hmm. Ole Miss and Texas have 4 each. Nobody has 3. And now there's 23 different schools who have either 2 or 1.
Wow.
So there's this feeling that the portal is really destroying. Some people are crying to the skies that the portal is ruining college football, that all of these players are leaving, and somehow they've invented in their minds that they're all going to Georgia and Ohio State, and Texas is doing pretty well. But again, how many is 4, really? We're not talking about anything remotely close to double digits. You've got Boise State with the same number as Notre Dame. Tulane has the same number as Georgia, although that could change if Caleb Downs goes to Georgia. You've got Michigan State with more than Michigan. Like, the truth of the matter is, for all of the people that want to cry foul about the portal and what they think it's doing to college football, put it back up for just a second, Blake. This is the closest thing to socialism college football has ever known. Because if I were to break down the numbers of this year's 5-star players and where they're going, it's going to be a consolidation of a handful of schools.
You mean Baylor and Syracuse and Tulane don't each get a 5-star every year?
Suddenly, schools like that, Boise comes, Duke, they come off the list, and you see the big dogs. You see Alabama, you see Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, the usual suspects. What people just aren't recognizing enough about the portal is that the actual redistribution of the players through the portal is so much more spread out. So much more. In the Big Ten, Purdue has signed the same number of top 50 portal guys so far this year as Ohio State. In what world does that ever happen in any shape, form, or fashion? So the next time, you can take it down now, Blake, the next time somebody tells you oh God, this is unfair for college football that the big dogs are only getting bigger. Well, it's like, well, that's already the way the world is. Like, that's how they got to be big dogs. All of the guys go to the same schools. In the portal, I think you can see that there are 3 schools nationwide that have gone really hardcore at the portal: Oregon, Ole Miss, and Texas. They're the only schools that have signed more than 2. But by and large, if you're a smaller school, there's a much better chance of getting elite level talent through the portal than you ever would. Think that Boise State has Malachi Nelson right now, who a year ago was arguably the number 1 quarterback in the country. That guy's now at a school like Boise State. That could never happen in any other setting and format, and yet here we are.
Ketch, I was going to ask you a question about Niblack, and then we get a super chat along those lines. So I'll use that as a way to start your thoughts here. 199 from Google Scholar: is Dan Butner a decent expectation for Niblack? Kind of an interesting way to ask. What do you think of Niblack as a weapon, and how would you use him?
Niblack is a more athletic Dan Butner. Dan Butner was a better catcher of the football and probably a better high point guy than Niblack, but Niblack's a better athlete. So I think Google Scholar is onto something, because Butner was never a tight end, not really. He was always a wide receiver, just kind of a slow, non-explosive one. I mean, he wasn't that's ultimate. I mean, if he had the explosiveness of Niblack, Butner might still be in the NFL right now.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not an apple for an apple, because I think Butner's skill set is different than Niblack's. But it's in the sense that Dan Butner, when he came onto the field, was really just a big wide receiver. Google, you're not far off.
Google Scholar, thank you for that 199. You know the super chats go right to the front of the line. Slightly off topic here, but we'll see if Ketch has this one. 499 from Peyton. Then do we hear how the microphones in the helmets did during bowl games? Could we see it implemented in the 24 season? I've not read anything about that. Ketch?
Caden, I almost wish I could just give you your money back, because I don't have a good answer for that. It definitely hasn't. Could it be implemented in 2024? Maybe. They'll talk about that later in the year, probably in the spring.
I wonder, one of the things I've wondered, Ketch, do you think that can be done? Would it need to be could it be done conference to conference, or is that something that would have to be done like with all 10 of the CFP conferences have to agree to that?
Feels like the answer could be both.
Because you and I could see how like Bama would be able to put that in a lot quicker than Toledo would.
The problem is in those intersectional games,
right?
One team had, I think the problem would be that a team that is preparing to use the helmet, there would be early in the season has to, go the old fashioned way and hold up weird, crazy signs. Or I know this sounds crazy, Chad. They can just have a player run the play in.
That's true. Just run in and say, we're running the oop to you. That's what we're doing. Well, because, the one ingredient that obviously the NFL doesn't have is Western Carolina. Say what you will about the Browns in a bad year or the Panthers this year. They're not that. They're not Chattanooga, in terms of it. So, that's where you'd run into problems. But I love the idea. Maybe start with, hey, when we get to conference, whoever we is in the discussion, when we get to conference, all of our conference games are going to be green dotted. Like, I think that's
keep you up to date. When we hear something,
yeah,
you won't have to pay for it next time. We'll just update you.
Peyton, you know, I'm doing a show every day from the Hall of Helmets. You know, if I find out about a green dot, I'm going to let you know. Thank you, sir. And then, Ketch, this may be a tease for just later in the show or maybe later. Darwin says, how's the blue chip list now, Ketch? Is it updated for the portal?
Darwin, What are you reading my mind over here? My ears are burning. I'm working on it right now, Darwin. I'm working on it right now. The toughest part of doing the list is that the big schools at the top have just more names for me to check on. And as I go down the list, then there's some schools get below single digit or get into single digits. And it's just real easy to check on them. It's hard to go through Alabama and Georgia and some of the others. Here's what I would tell you what I know already. Barring something that, well, I just can't foresee, Ohio State's going to be the new number one team in the Super Blue Chip rankings when I'm done this weekend. I just assumed it would be Georgia. And it turns out people aren't talking about Ohio State enough in that the Super Blue Chip rankings are almost always tilted towards young players. Think about it. Last year in the Super Blue Chip rankings, Texas ranked, I think, 5th. But 7 of those guys were true freshmen. And a lot of those guys didn't play, right? That's Arch. It's Jonte Cook, who played some, but not a lot. So if you don't lose a lot of those, you end up stacking them on top of each other. Ohio State had a bunch of guys who were NFL draft eligible who decided they were coming back to school. And what it means is, of all of the usual suspects in the Super Blue Chip rankings, they've got a stack of upperclassmen. It's only 6, but it's like, 6 more than Texas has.
Yeah.
So it will boosted them to the top of the rankings. Ohio State, I think, is going to end up being number 1, which changes the way I kind of think about them going into next season. Alabama is going to fall from 1st to at least 4th. And 2 years ago, they were in the 30s. Today, they're at 18. So they are still incredibly talented. Don't feel too sorry for Alabama. They have more Super Blue Chips than your favorite school, unless your favorite school is Georgia, Ohio State, or Texas. Other than that, if you're feeling pity for Alabama, it's misplaced pity. They're still incredibly talented. But yeah, Alabama has taken a fall from where they've been. Looks like Georgia will probably remain at number 2. And just wait until Monday when I have the full data points. I don't want to tell you where I think Texas is going to finish simply because there are some competitive schools with Texas, Oregon being one of them, that I still need to look up. But Texas is in really good shape. If Texas isn't in the playoff next year, it's a disappointment with what they have on their roster.
Darwin, thank you for the chat. Obviously, those super chats will go right to the top of the list. Thank you for jumping in. Specs chat up over 430 folks right now. We'll continue to talk portal stuff. Real quick, Ketch, let's tell them about My Perfect Franchise and what Andy can do for the folks out there in 2024.
I just heard from my guy Andy earlier today. Look, first of all, Andy's just good people. In a world where it's hard to find good people, Andy's one of them. What his business does is he helps people take that step to live the dream, to do the thing that they've always wanted to do. My daughter, I'll use her as an example. Chad, right now, she's into making bracelets. She's like a jewelry maker. She's 9, and she started this business where she wants to have a garage sale and sell her bracelets and jewelry and stuff like that. Well, one day she might want to do that like for a living. That may be what she wants to do as a career, but she doesn't know how to start a business. She wouldn't even know where to begin on how to set up an LLC and how does that work and where do you go? And these are the things that Andy specializes in. He specializes in, you've got a dream, you've got an idea, you want your own business, and he can help walk you through the steps that you need to take in order to realize that dream. Contact Andy at andy@myperfectfranchise.net or call that phone number. But the bottom line is being your own boss, being the man, doing your own thing, having the company of your dreams. It doesn't have to be rocket science it can become very doable with just a little bit of help. Let Andy help you. There you go.
All right, it's House Divided on a Friday, and we've gotten this far without seeing it, but now we need to see it because we've talked about Amari Niblack. We're about to talk about Jabbar Muhammad, and there's other names to talk about. So let's get a little portal combat.
Round one. Fight! Get over here! Finish him!
At some point, I think maybe Blake just needs to add like some weird, like just a floating Alabama logo with a tear. Just maybe something like that in the logo. Alabama loses more out of the portal. We talked about Amari Niblack, another name to keep in mind, and where this one ends up, we don't know. But Julian Sayin is a freshman quarterback out of California, didn't play for Bama last year, but he was the number one quarterback, according to some rankings, Ketch, in the whole 24 class. And this kid is now in the portal as of last night. Niblack plus that. I think you're absolutely correct. That's what really started the humor train last night on Alabama. Caleb Downs is an X's and O. That's a football guy. That's a guy you and I know. Yeah. Badass freshman safety. But when a tight end and one of the best quarterbacks in a class says, I'm out, that's when everybody really starts the clowning process.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's been a tough couple of weeks for Alabama. And you and I said this earlier this week. Nick Saban kind of screwed them, man. He did. I couldn't imagine that he would have wanted to do this. I'm watching Jim Harbaugh, Chad, and I'm wondering, we asked the question earlier, when is the best time for your coach to depart for the NFL? Maybe it's February. Because at least at that point, guys can't transfer midterm. So if they're going to transfer, they've got to wait 4 months. Right. And maybe by then they've gone through spring workouts. They feel a little bit different.
You're saying even though that portal window opens up, the academic part of it would be closed at that point.
We're watching look, Amari Niblack is enrolled at Texas.
Done. That's great. That's nuts, by the way.
He's done. He's an active University of Texas student. But when we get to February, that won't be the case. So while if Jim Harbaugh, the later he waits, and Harbaugh is kind of the diabolical son of a bitch. I mean, this is a guy that almost drowned his brother in the ocean one time. And, oh, by the way, I don't know if you guys know this. He's caught up in a scandal where he's trying to find every advantage possible. The more time he runs off the clock in January, the more difficult it becomes for the University of Michigan's roster to just fall apart.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I'm curious to see when Harbaugh it might hurt them in recruiting, but in terms of maintaining their roster, it may be that the answer actually is February, right after all of the schools have made it nearly impossible to enroll at midterm. Then you make the announcement. We'll see what happens with Michigan and Harbaugh, but the answer for Nick Saban, early January, wrong. In retrospect, Chad, don't you think if he knew now or knew then what he knows now, he'd have waited till February?
Probably. Yeah. It might have been more like instead of because he in his mind, he was thinking first day of class.
Yeah.
Right. He thought first day of class was a big cutoff. This kid saying was in that meeting. Think about it. This kid, Ketch, he's number one kid, right? He comes in, he enrolls early, rearranges his whole life.
Saban was trying to avoid the DeAndre Robinson deal where he just decided, well, screw it, I'm not showing up. Saban made sure they all showed up.
Yeah, my man went to class. My man met pretty girls. My man walked the campus in T-Town as a badass number one quarterback in the class, and he thinks, hey, I got my first meeting as an Alabama football player. And he sits down, and Saban says he's done. Like that, That's a hell of a Monday. Not Monday, Wednesday. It was a Wednesday, right? That's a hell of a day if you're saying.
You cannot begrudge the kid. Like, there are people who are like, can't believe these players have all of these rights. Do you not understand what Saban did to Julian Sayin? Waiting till he showed up and moved into the dorm rooms and then didn't even wait 24 hours.
He hadn't attended all his classes, guaranteed. He hadn't had a chance to read a syllable one. He might not have even had lunch yet. Ketch. And then Saban says he's out. But you're right. I'd say for those coaches, maybe it's like, could you wait as long as, probably after signing day, right? If you're really going to go diabolical, go after signing day.
Oh, yeah.
Once the semester is underway. So maybe Valentine's Day? Like circle the 14th of February on your list and see how close you can get to it.
You have to fake it, though, and make it look like something just happened.
Yeah.
Because you'd be signing the kids. The thing is, the kids you sign in February aren't midterm guys. So if you pull that stunt after signing day,
that's true.
Those dudes can just ask out of their letters of intent, and no school is going to say no. No school is going to hold these kids against their wishes. It's a horrible look. It's hard to recruit guys when they ask, well, hey, if I ever have any problems, you're going to let me go, right? And they're like, oh, yeah, except for what we're doing right now. Just ignore that. But, yeah, in the future, we'll be great. I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
No, it's okay. I would like to present you with the greatest Longhorn angle I've seen today on all this Bama stuff, and it's Chris Bennett. Well done, Chris Bennett. That's just, whew.
I have seen Alabama fans suggest that that karma will come to Texas and they'll get theirs. And Texas fans have responded, no, you guys broke Colt McCoy and sent us into the abyss for over a decade. This is karma coming back on you. I actually agree with Chris more than I agree with the Alabama fans. No offense, 7-time national champions in the last decade plus. Hey, real quick, I saw this question. We don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but I wanted to answer it. It's either Vivek or Vivek. Says other websites have mentioned that Texas NIL expenses are around $15 million. What do you think? I was told last night, I didn't put this specific number on Orange Bloods just because, I don't know, it seemed like the kind of thing that probably shouldn't be public. But I was told in the way to use it, not quite 15. What I heard was that the number they thought might be as low as 6. Hey, we've got this under control. We're going to keep this at about 6. I think that number is now doubled. I think it's closer to 12, much closer to 12 than 15 based on the number I was literally told last night. I won't give the exact number just for the same reasons I said I didn't post it on Orange Bloods. But it could get to 15. They're not done. You know, Jabbar Muhammad could add some NIL to it. So I don't think it's as high as 15 yet, but it's double what the initial estimates were going to be, and it's not that far away from that number.
Vivek, thank you for that. One other quick chat here, kind of an interesting question about Bama. So are the Bama kids leaving because Saban is gone or because of the dude that is coming in? That's from Jennifer. Jennifer, I don't know. To me, that's a combination of both, Ketch, but the more you read about some of these guys, and this quarterback's a perfect example. He was coming to Alabama to play for Saban. So when Saban stood up in front of him and said, I'm retiring, the first thing in his mind was, whoa, I'm out of here because I came to play for that guy.
Jennifer, I think the number is like 90% because Saban is gone. Yeah. I think the Julian Sayin one is the most interesting example, though, of the latter, in that Sayin's a California kid, and obviously DeBoer has been on the West Coast with Washington. When Sayin was a prospect, DeBoer didn't recruit him at all. I don't think Washington offered. Maybe it was just they didn't want to waste their time, but for whatever reason, No relationship there was built. DeBoer just transferred in from the portal the quarterback that he signed last year, which was a 4-star guy, not a guy that was rated anywhere near as high as Sane, but still his number one prospect at Washington from the year before. And I think Sane just felt like this is his guy. I'm in the wrong spot. This guy didn't want me as a recruit. And literally this week, he brought in a guy directly to be my competition. And yet it's his guy. It followed him. And so I think, I think you add it all up together, and Julian Sane is probably one of the first guys that did it because of the new coaching staff moving in specifically. That I think that dude just felt like, I got to go somewhere where I'm someone's number one guy, and it's not here anymore.
Yeah. Honestly, for Sane, he might tell us it's both. It might be both of those things at the same time, right? It's the combo of the guy I was here to play for is gone, and then you bring up that backstory of, and the guy that's coming in happens to be a guy that I know is not on my side. Like
another thing that I heard, Chad, this was yesterday. Forgive me, apologies to the person who tweeted this out. I may have seen someone else's retweet, and I can't even remember where it came from. But in the past, seems like I read this from an NFL guy. In the past, Alabama players were taking less NIL money so that they could play for Saban. And remember, if we go back to the summer, Nick Saban's begging Alabama alums to get involved in NIL, begging them, getting all hot and bothered about Texas A&M and Texas and Georgia. Like, he's all upset at these schools because those schools have more NIL investment than they had at Alabama. Now that Saban is gone, what I read yesterday was that a lot of these guys are like, okay, well, Saban's gone. I'm not playing for a price cut anymore. Before, I was playing for the greatest coach of all time, and nobody develops players into NFL talent, which I make that money up on my NFL contract on the back end. That's all done for. So now there's a roster of guys at Alabama that, from their perspective, have been underpaid on the NIL landscape, and now they're going to get theirs.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's the number one thing in play here, but it's something that I hadn't thought about. And I think, just like with Jennifer's question, is it because Saban's gone? Is it because it's Kalen DeBoer? Yes. Like, those things don't have to be mutually exclusive. And I would also throw in, these dudes want to get paid in ways they hadn't previously. And Alabama's not at a point with its NIL program that it can pay the roster that it's accumulated. The bill came due. And that's not why a guy like Julian Sand left, but it might be the reason why, like, a guy like Amari Niblack left. That guy's going to make more in NIL at Texas than he would at Alabama. And now that Nick Saban's not there anymore, and they've got a coach that they didn't sign up to play for, either pay me or I'm going to go someplace where I want to be, where I'll be happy and I'll get paid.
Man, that's a wild hunk of irony, Ketch, for those guys that it's important to. The idea that the guy that ultimately was keeping the price down at Bama is the guy that was screaming and yelling at the boosters about, we got to get the price up at Bama. That's crazy. And now that he's gone, these boosters are going to hear about from DeBoer and from new guys and from their old contacts. Hey, remember that kid? Remember last year where this position, we were able to pay the kid $300? Okay, now it needs to be $5. And then the boosters are going to fully realize what Saban was telling them.
No, and Texas has this problem. Texas, I think, has an NIL bill that they're going to have to figure out. Mm-hmm. I even had it in the war room last night that they need more. They need more monthly donors. They need more Matthew McConaughey's to step up and contribute large sums of money towards the NIL. As Vivek asked in the question, you're talking about an NIL bill for the entire athletic department that's going to be between 12 and maybe as high as 15 by the end of the year. Again, I don't think they're at 15 now, but there's not. I guess if you and I had a bill, we'd argue that 12 to 15, the difference between 12 and 15 was a lot, right? But in this world, I'm not sure that it is, but it has not yet been fundraised. So that still has to come. And, the message I got was, look, it'll get figured out, but it's still getting figured out. And that's at Texas. I think we know that Alabama is below that. Nick Saban has told us that. Mm-hmm. One of the things that the schools still have to figure out is how you do this. It's not popular with any of the donors. Matter of fact, I was having this conversation with somebody last year. We were talking about On3, the network that's a competitor with Rivals. What On3 has gambled on in a lot of respects as a company, they're all in on the portal, not necessarily on the portal, but they're in on, their whole thing is NIL estimates. Go to a player page. They'll tell you that an NIL valuation of this player is this. A lot of that Arch Manning is worth $3 million in the portal, or from an NIL standpoint, these guesstimates, they're not even real. And they've gambled that that's the future. And they may be right. But in the immediate and right now, it's not popular at all. And Texas is killing it in NIL, but they're not killing it. Last year, Chris Del Conte, I think Jay Hartzell was with them, the president, Steve Sarkisian. They went to a mountain retreat. I can't remember if it was Aspen or it was one of those types of places, right? They sat down and they gave the wealthiest alums they could get together the sales pitch of, we need your help in NIL. And it's still amongst, I think, an older crowd. I think it's an incredibly unpopular thing that the wealthiest Texas fans love winning. And they love what the Adonai Mitchells of the world and the Quinn Ewers of the world have brought the football program as a byproduct of them, their being on the roster. So they like it at least that much. But they don't like it enough that they're sending large checks to cover this need. And it is a real rub, not just for Texas, not just for Alabama, but for, I would say, almost every program in the country outside of, like, Oregon's got the Nike money. A&M and Georgia both have deep rosters of affluent boosters who are heavily involved. They're good. Louisville's got, like, the Papa John's money, but, like, it's not a long roster of schools that are killing it. We're seeing that Auburn has had a big influx of money, but is that sustainable? Is that a one-year deal? Is this, we're going to try to make it work now, but we're going to do that forever from here on out? I think these are all questions that haven't been completely worked out, and they're not worked out at Texas. If we brought any of the guys from the Texas One Fund on the show, and who knows, maybe we can do that in the next week or two. I'll see if somebody can do it. They would tell you, we need you. It's like that old Uncle Sam poster. It's just a Texas booster pointing at the camera. I want you. I need you. It is all of college football right now. But I think the poster child for it, no pun intended, is Alabama, because they used to have the deepest roster. And Saban told us a year ago, help.
Yep.
Help, please. Please. Pretty please. He tried scare tactics, right? A&M bought their class, rebel. Texas and these other mysterious schools are doing all this in NIL. And when that didn't work, he went straight to the boosters and just said, please, please. And by and large, no matter how much those Alabama boosters love Nick Saban, do you know what they told him, Chad?
Told him no.
They told him no. And that is a big reason why we are where we are right now with Alabama. Because if they were at the top of the totem pole, guys would have to be walking away from money.
Right.
But the thing that I feel like we've learned about Alabama is not one of these guys that is left is walking away from money. They're not turning money away and getting less somewhere else. And that is a big problem for Alabama because you know what? Some of these guys still have time to enter the portal. Mm-hmm. And they're all like, hey, did you see Isaiah Bond? He's got a new truck.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say time. Ketch, we're only 9 days into the month.
Yeah, but a lot of these guys will want to do it so that they can still make a spring, like transfer midterm. It's the thing that Harbaugh, I think, may bail Michigan out on is that they may have a bunch of guys that want to go. They'll just have to wait the entire spring semester before they can put themselves in a position to do that.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, we do have a super chat along these lines, talking some NIL stuff. Buy or sell is coming up around 1. It's a $5 from Kevin. Are schools allowed to raise ticket prices to pay for NIL?
Nope.
It's a great question.
No, I think what the Texas NIL people, what they would like, Texas has more money that it can spend in athletics. The money they're bringing in, say through the foundation, is numbers that just put the numbers that we're talking about to absolute shame. I think what I've heard is that what they would like the message from Chris Del Conte to be to people who give to the to the foundation. Take 5% of the money that you're donating to the foundation annually. Give that money to the NIL fund instead of the foundation, and all of this is taken care of.
Yeah.
The problem is, you ever known a wealthy person that just likes to give up money? Like, or they even may be charitable, but they're not trying to just make 5% less a year because.
Or even telling them to reroute the money might piss them off.
Well, exactly.
Right?
You've got two entities that are pointing in the same direction, in theory, that are butting heads a little bit. And I think the NIL is like, look, man, we just need a little bit to be like, okay. And the foundation's like, well, don't come knocking on my door. We've worked hard to collect the money that you know what I mean? So but if they can get that figured out, I think this becomes really, really easy, but that hasn't happened yet. And there's been zero signs that Chris Del Conte is going to do that. I think that I know there are people that want him to do that would love for him to do that. Hell, there are people that are like, why can't we get some more NIL billboards at the stadium? Why aren't we running commercials, letting people know, donate to the tech? Why aren't there stations in the stadium where people on the way to the concession stand can sign up for the Texas One Fund? Like, there are ways to still do this that they haven't taken advantage of all of the possible ways. They've got to continue to mainstream it in a way where it's just you got to be able to just take your credit card out and slap it on the deal and check a couple of boxes and be done. But once they figure out how to do more of that, I think the paying for all of this, and eventually I do think all of the schools will catch up, Chad. All of the schools need to figure out, hey, at home games, you know what we need to do? It costs us zero money to let people know that we need their money.
Yeah.
We'll set up a station at every other gate. And when you go in and buy your game program, there will be a space to join up, donate money, maybe have some student athletes there at booths. You go to a Texas football game and there are members of the volleyball team talking about all the charitable endeavors that they're involved in because of the Texas One Fund. Like, they're still in a big education stage. They still need more money, but I think they also just need better continued investment, communication, and just flat out awareness. Because the one thing that NIL and the portal have done, there are a lot of gigantic falsehoods that exist that people have just swallowed up as truths. And one of them is that graphic that I put up earlier. This misnotion that somehow only a handful of schools they're all the big dogs are all dominating the portal. And it's like, well, no, not really. Purdue has the same number of top 50 guys as Ohio State. If what you're suggesting is true, that could never happen in that world. In fact, I guess you've got Oregon, Ole Miss, and Texas. If you eliminate those three schools, no school in the Big Ten has signed more than 2 top 50. No school in the Big 12 has signed more than 2 top 50. No school in the ACC has signed more than 2. So all of the major conferences, the schools inside of them are actually kind of equally distributing that talent. And I think even something as simple as that, I think people have a wildly wrong picture of what's actually happening.
Ketch, somebody threw in a chat that's perfect for our show, so I grabbed it. Vivek wants to know, does A&M have more NIL than Texas?
Yes. A&M has more affluent donors, the kind that Texas is hoping to step up. They have more affluent donors giving money right now than Texas does. Simple as that. Another thing that I heard yesterday about this, Chad, Texas doesn't have a single former athlete that's giving to significant dollars to NIL.
That was fascinating. I saw that note in the war room, and I thought about it a little bit. Maybe I haven't thought about it a ton, though, that for each school, right, could big time athletes become a big part of that? And is there any school that's truly got that organized yet? That'd be interesting to know.
Some more than others, and some would have more athletes who are here's what I go to Quandre Diggs and tell Quandre, we don't have any former football players that are giving money to the athletes, not to the school, to the actual athletes.
Right.
Can you work on seeing if you can get 5 or 10 guys together? I mean, if each of those guys gave $50 or 50,000, excuse me, a piece, that's 5's 250,000. And that by itself pays for baseball. It's
or could you make it specific to that sport if Quandre and
absolutely. I'm just saying that 5 guys given 50,000 might not sound like much. I use the baseball example because $250,000 in almost every sport other than men's basketball and football would be revolutionary. And now if you started to get more guys, even at that level, donating money, suddenly your NIL problems are much closer to being solved than not.
Yeah. Vivek, thank you for that question. I just thought this is funny just because of the whole Bama thing. Saw a Bama fan wanting others to stop paying 10% tithes to churches and send it to Alabama. LOL. RL, that's funny.
That is funny.
Is funny. Now, that's how you know how serious it can be. SEC, it just means more, right? Somebody else throwing in the idea that CDC needs to befriend Elon Musk to become a Longhorn fan. He does have a factory in Austin.
Look, I kind of loathe Elon Musk, but Henry, you're getting the picture.
Yeah, right? You're kind of getting there. And now we get to a $20 super chat.
What up, Tom?
What's up, Tom? Thank you so much. Love what Sark is doing, although we need more difference makers on D from the portal. Thoughts? Ketch, you ever think about the join feature for OB YouTube shows?
I don't get it. What's the join feature?
Does he mean a join feature like for people to join the Texas One Fund?
He's saying call in. Yes. Have we ever thought about it? Yes. The execution is still something that we're working on. Chad and I back in the day used to do a deal where people would just call in and leave messages, and then we'd mix it up into once an hour playing all of the calls that we got. The answer is yes. We will continue in 2024 to try to think about how to get people more active, more into the shows, developing that feature, one of the ideas. And yes, Texas does need more difference makers on D. I think we know they want to get Jabbar Muhammad, difference maker. We know they would like to have, I think, another linebacker if the right guy becomes available. The kid from Arizona is a perfect example. And we know that they want a couple of guys on the defensive line. So there's like 3 or 4 spots, I think, that are still left open on the defensive side of the ball. I think Texas is done on offense. Tom, if that makes you feel any better, I think they're done on offense. And I think now it's about boosting the defense by any means necessary. 3 or 4 more players before we get to August.
Thank you, Chom G, for that $20 super chat. Super chats always go right to the top of the list. Thank you for throwing a little bit in the old tip jar and supporting Orange Bloods Live. Like, subscribe, get your notifications. 500 folks in the Specs chat right now. We've crossed over that 1 o'clock spot, so it might be time for buy or sell. Ketch, you ready to go?
I am, but I'll let you go first today.
All right, let's do it, and let's start with some football. Texas fans feeling good. Buy or sell number 1, Ketch. Right now, you'd pick Texas to beat every team on its schedule except Georgia.
Ooh. I haven't given it any thought. Sell. I haven't completely thought it out yet, but I don't have Texas 11-1 in my brain completely just yet. I might get there. My brain isn't quite wired that way, Chad. You caught me off guard a little bit. I just haven't thought about it.
All right, buy or sell number 2. How about this one? Over under for Bama next season, 7.5 wins.
Oh, buy. I think the question is, if I set it at 9.5, where would a person fall on that? And I think I would take the under, but I think Vegas will probably keep them at about 9.5.
Okay. So you'd sell the 7.5 as far as the number itself.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Buy or sell number 3, Ketch. Amari Niblack will have more touchdowns in 24 than Sanders had in 23. And that number was 2, by the way.
I'm going to say buy, just because the Sanders number was so low, and Niblack's kind of a proven touchdown maker. So I'll go the number. So if the number was 4, I would sell, because you'd need 5. 5 sounds like a lot.
Right.
But at 2, I'm comfortable enough to Arch might throw in 2. So yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. So getting to 3 is not that crazy. All right, buy or sell number 4, Ketch. Jim Harbaugh to the NFL and Brian Kelly to Michigan makes sense to you.
Buy. It makes sense, but it doesn't mean that I think that's what's going to happen. I got a sneaking suspicion that by the way, saying suspicion and Michigan together is
that was really good. I got a suspicion.
Suspicion. I got a suspicion that Michigan could hire from within instead of just hiring the best available. And I wonder if part of that deals with they know maybe that's the best way to keep the roster together. And I wonder moving forward how many hires we're going to start seeing from within, where ADs are looking at their roster and saying, we can't afford to have the roster fall apart. Forget about what the best hire is. What's the best hire that allows us not to fall into the Alabama abyss? And I don't know. Michigan will be a good test study on that, because by all rights, they should go out and hire a guy like Brian Kelly, but maybe they don't do that for a set of unique reasons that haven't completely existed before in college football up until now.
Yeah. All right, Ketch, I'm going to continue my would you rather string here. We're going music today, and my apologies for a misspelling, kids. Buy or sell them?
I was really hoping for another wrestling match, but go ahead.
This one's going to be music. Buy or sell, number 5. Dolly Parton and Janis Joplin share a birthday today. In the early days, you'd rather see Joplin at Threadgill's than Dolly at a dive bar in Nashville.
Buy. Yeah. By the way, have I ever told you I think Janis Joplin was hot?
I don't know that you've ever told me that. I could see it.
Yeah, like she was a little sex kitten. You know, not the most traditionally beautiful, but like she had a little smoking little body though at her prime. Go back and look at some of those pictures of her before she some hard living. But like some of them, it was like, all right, Janis, go on with your bad self.
Hey, there's different kinds of hot, and she's take all the drugs and don't take showers kind of hot.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So that's what it is. And again, I know she's a Janis. I stared at it for a while, like, what is wrong with this buy or sell? And it just hit me a few minutes ago. I misspelled Janice's first name. That is what's wrong with that buy or sell.
I feel like if you wanted to do some heroin and have great sex, Janis probably make that happen.
My Lord, and that gravelly voice is sexy, and there's just all kinds of stuff going on with Janis. Absolutely. All right, halfway through buy or sell. What do you got, Ketch?
Buy or sell number 1. Let's just start in the NFL in the playoffs.
Yep.
The Houston Texans, they don't keep it completely going this weekend against Baltimore. It's too big of a hill to climb, but they keep it in single digits. Buy or sell?
Sell. I'm laying those points. I'm laying the 9.5. I don't think it's going to be a complete annihilation, but it's like a 10 to 14, could even creep up to 17. I think the Texans are in for, some truth serum this week. I think Baltimore's gonna get them by double digits. Don't do the H, guys.
Don't, by the way. Yeah. Don't. I didn't know that I needed to sign off on that, Richard, but don't. Don't do that. My hypothesis was with a person who's a ghost right now. So, don't mistake, that as an endorsement for H. Thank you, Richard. In the event that needed to be said.
Don't do the H with the living or the dead. Either one.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. In case that needed to be said. Buy or sell number 2. Before we get to Monday, Alabama will have at least 2 more notable names enter the portal.
Before we get to Monday, 2 more, you said?
Yes. Not 1, but 2.
Before we get to Monday, 2 more notable.
Before we get to Monday's show.
2 more notable Alabama guys in the portal. The key word there is notable. How I'm defining notable.
Yeah, it's a very subjective
It really is. I'm going to sell and say it's less than 2 notable guys.
Oh, Chad suggesting that maybe the bleeding will have stopped by then. The major bleeding, anyway. Yeah. Maybe they've got like a Band-Aid. You know when you put a Band-Aid on a cut and it still bleeds, but it's restrained to the cut?
You use the word notable. So it'll be the notable bleeding. Like from across the room, you could see the blood spurting out of his hand. That may stop. That's what I'm saying.
All right. Buy or sell number 3. Jabbar Muhammad commits to the Longhorns by the time we do our show on Monday.
That one I'm going to sell. From reading the notes in the war room and what Jason Sukumel was able to get from him. Sounds like there may be a little bit of a process still to go, wants to take a breath, wants to back off a little bit, think about things, and might still have the Bama thing. There may be a trip to Oregon at some point. So I'll sell.
By the way, had a source tell me last night, and I didn't make too much of this in the war room because people would treat it like I yelled fire in a crowded theater.
Mm-hmm.
If he makes the trip to Oregon, watch the hell out.
Really?
I was told that if he visits Oregon, nobody will pay more than Oregon to make sure they get a yes.
Okay. Fair enough.
So if it just comes down to like,
Hey,
who's going to pay that kid the most money?
Right. That's true.
The answer might be the Ducks. And if you're a Texas fan, like, pay whatever it takes. Just understand there's a trickle down for that there are other guys in that secondary. They go, whoa, because these guys show each other their contracts. I've heard about guys come in on NIL visits to schools, Chad, and it's like, how do you do on NIL? And guys just whip out their contracts and show them. So you can't keep it a secret.
Yeah.
You can't tell Jabbar Muhammad, hey, no matter what you do, don't tell your cousin Malik how much money you're making. Like, these guys all talk. So it can be problematic. I'm just throwing that out there. Buy or sell number 4. The Longhorns announce a defensive tackle hire or a defensive line hire by the time we do Tuesday's show.
That I'm going to say is a buy, because I do think Baltimore is going to beat the Texans, and the Rod Wright thing feels like where it may be headed. So by Tuesday's show, yes, buy. If
the Texans lose on Saturday, right?
Yeah, that's Saturday. It may be mid-Sunday it's done.
If by then it's not done, then maybe that would tell me that maybe it's somebody who is on a college staff and maybe they want to get through signing day. I don't know. This has been the damnedest. I reached out to a Texan source yesterday. They had no idea what if Rod Wright is getting a job. It is not like permeating around through the Houston Texans locker room right now. So whatever's happening there, man, it is being kept secret. And finally, buy or sell number 5. Texas basketball team loses again this weekend. And it will be the last time this season that Texas fans talk about college basketball in general.
Buy. Yeah. Because it's going to be at home. It's that guy coming in with that team, and it's an 11 a.m. tip. And I think by 1 o'clock, it's going to be so, yeah.
That make Texas 1-4 in Big 12 play. Very difficult to overcome that. The only thing Texas fans want to hear is like, are we going to have success? They don't want to make the tournament. That is not like, I think Texas fans would be very upset if I told them today, hey, Rodney Terry's going to lead you to the NCAA tournament in each of this season, this one right now, and next season. But they won't win any games.
Ugh.
They'll be like, get his ass out of here.
Right. No, you can't do that.
And that they're trending way below that. I've been doing this section of my write-ups. By the way, that is how we play buy or sell. Where I show ESPN's bracketology, because Texas for the last couple of weeks, they were the last 4 in, then they were the first 4 out, then they're the next 4 out, which is worse. If you're keeping score of this at home, kids, next 4 out is better than worse than last 4 out. Now they're not on any of those, and they weren't on the next 4 out, excuse me. They weren't on the next 4 out before the game against Central Florida this weekend. So wherever they were at on the totem pole, they're now even lower. They got to play their asses off just to get back into the next 4 out so that then they can get into the last 4 out and then to see if they can get themselves into the last 4 in. But even if they're in the last 4 in, which is a long ways away from the last 4 out and the next 4 out and they got a lot to do. They got a lot to do.
Yeah, and they might have 4 conference losses in a tough conference, like you said, by the time Saturday's game is over. All right, so before we get out of here, we do have a couple super chats. Also, Ketch, Too Broke has a song for us today. I like this. This is good punnage. I just dropped in to see what suspicion my Michigan was in. Something like that. Yeah.
It was worse when you sang it.
Yeah, it was way
When I
worse.
was just leaving it to my imagination, it was
Yeah.
really good, Too Broken. Then Chad kind of ruined that by trying to actualize it in.
We'll bring it back. We'll bring it back positive. It reminds you that you can go watch Big Lebowski because it's in there in a prominent way. And the other great part, Catch, is who sings that song for the kids that don't know. You know that one, right?
That song,
Kenny Rogers.
That's a Kenny Rogers song?
That's Kenny Rogers and the Fifth Dimension. I just walked in. I just dropped in to see.
I completely forgot about that.
Next time you hear the song, listen carefully because you know Kenny's voice. When you hear it, it makes total sense. You go, oh, yeah, that's just like psychedelic stuff over Kenny Rogers' voice. Too Broke, thank you for that.
I'll do that as soon as we're off the show.
Oh, it's such a good song. My God. All right, we've got super chats piling up here. Let's get this one. $5 from Blake. At concessions, have a box on the credit card machine to round your change up to the nearest dollar for the One Fund. It goes farther than you think.
I don't disagree with that, Blake.
Blake, not only do I not disagree with it, that is a fascinating way to go about it. We've all pulled up through the McDonald's drive-thru and they say, do you want to give $1 or $2 to, the Ronald McDonald House?
The thing is, the school has to be separate from this. So I wonder how concessions would work. Like the school's not, there is some separation for clarification, but it's a great idea. Matter of fact,
it really
Blake,
is.
I'm going to mention that to somebody this weekend, if for no other reason, Blake, than to answer the question on Monday for you, if that could actually be a thing.
Yeah, and also,
can I throw out another suggestion?
Yeah.
To get the most prime tailgating spots, 5% of that money should go to the One Fund. The big, massive tents like we had at Orange Bloods for a year, Catch, that should all be going to the One Fund.
But that money goes to the university, right?
There is an intermediary there.
Okay. That's that really is the issue. I think all these schools are going to have to figure out is this money goes to the school. How do you get it to the funds? They've got to straighten all that stuff out. Catch. Here's the other thing I would tell everybody is we're about to head into a new SEC. If you can figure out a good way for fans at a game to help with the fund, do you know what school everybody should be afraid of? LSU. Every Saturday. Tiger Stadium. You know what they do with those Jello shots in Omaha? They're going to embarrass the rest of us when it comes to raising money. It's going to be silly.
Well, look, their baseball and women's basketball teams basically can't take any more money.
Right.
They're fully self-sufficient. They're raking in the money. They would tell you, hey, we appreciate your donations to women's basketball, but our football department needs some money, which, and it should be up until Colin Simmons made his announcement for Texas. Chad, I know you'll remember this. Baseball had more monthly donations per month than football did. And it's not like baseball's rolling in it. So believe me, we're still in a period where Texas would like to have in the tens of thousands of people giving monthly donations. And that's just not remotely close to happening yet. So there's a lot that can be done both by, I think, the most affluent, but also people that just want to give a little bit. Like, hey, you know what? I'll go on one less date night a month and I'll just donate like $30, the money I would have spent at the movies, the Texas one or something like that. Like they're still trying to get a lot of people involved in that. We're still in the infancy stage of all of this.
Yeah, it's crazy. Absolutely crazy. We got super chats in. Also want to mention just an idea, just a thought for a starter. And this is the thought I had. If you go to Hayes City Store, that's your starter. Margarita on the rocks and the home run dip. That's how I start plenty of meals. That's a meal I actually had with Jeff Ketchum.
Is that my elbow?
That is your elbow. I was going to say that sexy elbow you see is Jeff Ketchum's elbow right there. Margarita on the rocks, always on point, always perfect. And those dips are incredible. The one in the middle is bean dip. Just trust me, it's amazing. I know you may not have had bean dip for a while, but damn, it's good. The salsa is great. The chips are amazing. and that's just the start of it out at Hayes City Store. Bourbon milkshake's awesome. Barry's Heaven's awesome. You've seen us throw some of those pictures up, and you have heard me talk about it. You've heard Ketch talk about it. Some of our chatters have gone out there as well. FM 150 in Driftwood. Double check the weather this time of year. Make sure you got a good one, but get on out there to Hayes City Store. It's always a good time. All right. So Ketch, we do have some super chats. Couple still to grab here. This is an interesting one from Paul, $4.99. I bet we start seeing more mid-season firings like the Aggies did. Makes it easier to replace their portal players in the actual portal. We've talked about it this week, Ketch. After thinking it through, would you agree with the idea that when the Aggies did it, or maybe even a shade earlier, is optimal?
I think it comes down to how quickly your hiring process is on the back end of that. So if you fire the guy in October, but then you hire your guy December 15th, you probably waited too long.
Right.
So the hire and the fire both, I think, need to be done Mac Brown-ish. If I'm not mistaken, he was hired like December 1st. Sark was like a January 2nd. In 2024, that month makes a big difference. Yes.
Yeah. I wonder if you sat Ross Bjork down and the A&M power that figured that out, would they tell you that their timing was thought out? Would they if you tell them, hey, it seems like it works really well with the portal and being able to rebuild, would they just tell you, nah, it was a happy accident? Or would they actually tell you they thought it through?
I think they'd tell you they thought it through. I think it's a happy accident, but you know, sometimes happy accidents turn out to be future plans. And I think that Ross Bjork, let's put it like this. If Ryan Day, who could have the most talented roster in college football this year, if they don't have the success that Ohio State fans are demanding, boy, it's hard to think that Ohio State wouldn't make the playoff in a 12-teamer.
Yeah, good point. A 12-team playoff. Plus, Ketch, you couldn't fire Ryan Day in early or mid-November because he hasn't played the ultimate test yet. That game always happens in late
and he's
November.
going to be in the you have to think they're going to be in the playoff.
And they'll be in, right. Yeah.
So they wouldn't, if let's say he lost at home as like the 5 seed in the playoffs, might lose his job, but by then it might be late December.
Right.
And let the floodgates go, because, you know, you're in that position where you got to remember a lot of these guys. I mean, think about Texas. Most of their portal guys, they announced the first surge of them on signing day.
Yeah. Well, the one thing, Ketch, that I think we're thinking hopefully they'll think of this before we roll through the first thing. We haven't even factored in the 12-team playoff to this portal discussion, but think about it. There might not be anything better than the 12-team playoff to explain why you need to move the portal windows. How could you have a portal window that goes from December 2nd to January 4th if you have an expanded 12-team playoff? Like, think that through in your brain for a second. That doesn't make any sense.
They're going to have to make some changes somehow. I don't know.
Everything has to get
the rules that they made for this season weren't built with the idea of a 12-team playoff in mind.
No, you're right. Paul, thank you for that $4.99. Interesting stuff to think about. This is our guy Harish, super chat, $5. Oh, this is nice. I remember leaving messages in high school and college and listening in hopes that it would get played. That's reference to the old radio show.
Were you Bad Bill Cosby?
Bad Bill Cosby. Chewbacca? Maybe one of those.
Angry Aggie Kid.
Angry Aggie Kid, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Were you one of those? Harish, we appreciate you checking it out today. Also, we got this one at $4.99 from Matthew. Would it shock you at this point if Georgia, Texas, Ohio State, and Oregon are not at least 4 of the final 8 teams next year? I feel like that is tier 1 next year. That sounds about right to me. Maybe I don't know about Oregon for sure, but the other 3
I'm on the fringe with Oregon.
Yeah, the other 3 feel right though.
The other 3 are right. If those schools aren't in the Final 8 next year, I think those teams would feel like they left some meat on the bone, that those teams should at least be that far. And I think Oregon would tell you they should be that far. Yeah. They've got some overhaul. They've got some change coming that, we'll need to see what does it look like when Bo Nix isn't the quarterback. So there are some things that Oregon has to change. The thing about Georgia and Texas, they return their quarterbacks. And Ohio State, I think, would tell you that they've improved their quarterback. Mm-hmm. Still need to see that in actuality more than anything else. But Matthew, yes, bye.
Yeah, some good early tests, too. Georgia's got Bama early. Texas obviously has Michigan early. Ohio State, interestingly enough, doesn't play all those new Big Ten teams like Michigan has to. Ohio State really does get a chance to sort of cruise through their schedule, and I'd have to double-check Oregon's schedule. But Oregon does have to play. Oregon's got a really bizarre schedule, I think, next year where they do have to play. I think it's Michigan, and then they play in USC, and I think they play Washington and all that. So
I'm going to look it up real quick, just because the fact that we got asked the question. Here's Oregon's schedule for next year.
Yeah, how many of those big dogs did they play? And do they have anything non-conference wise?
I'm going to just go right down the list. It's Hawaii, Idaho.
Okay.
Boise State.
Okay, we're easing in.
An interesting game because suddenly Malachi Nelson's there.
Sure.
Oregon State on the road.
Wow.
UCLA at home.
Yeah.
Michigan State at home.
Okay.
Ohio State at home.
So they do play Ohio State.
Yes.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so two of those teams play each other. My bad.
Purdue on the road. Illinois at home. Michigan in the big house.
Wow.
Maryland at home. Wisconsin in Madison.
Okay.
And Washington at home.
Nice.
It's a pretty formidable schedule.
It is. Good tests there. Okay. So Ohio State does have to play Oregon. I don't think they have any other combos that are Michigan, I think, has to play all those bad combos next year, which is weird. And who is, isn't it USC and UCLA? I think both play LSU next year as well. There's some really cool cross-conference games, non-cons that we're going to get to take a look at. Matthew, thank you for that super chat. But yeah, those four teams will definitely be ones to watch. And you'd think they'd be in right now. I'm just going to throw out this one.
Real quick, is this the first time that we've done a show in the last couple of weeks where someone didn't announce their names in the portal that stopped the show?
Probably. Yeah, probably.
It's got to be one of the few times.
It does. It's one of the very, very few. There was one other chat I wanted to hit in terms of NFL. We'll get into some quick picks. But before we do that, Ketch, anything else on Jabbar Muhammad you wanted to mention before the week ends here? We didn't talk about him a ton today, but he did have the visit that wrapped up yesterday, correct? At Austin, he finished up yesterday.
Yeah, Texas people that I talked to, there are some. We had one source yesterday say that it was a done deal. We had another source say it was more 50-50 than anything else. Mm-hmm. So we're between a coin flip and it's done. And both of the people that both of those examples, I think, are people that had reasons. Like I can't say that either of them are absolutely wrong at the moment. We're going to have to see how every day that goes by where Jabbar Muhammad hasn't committed to Texas, and every day I think that accumulates, the less likely it is. Like if he goes to Oregon, Texas might need to start thinking about a backup plan at that point, or at least getting ready for what could happen if in fact he goes to Oregon.
Okay. And if Jabbar Muhammad ends up at Texas, who is the Texas player that gets the call first of, all right, young man, time to step it up right now? Who's the guy most affected in your mind?
By Jabbar Muhammad?
Correct.
Terrence Brooks.
Okay.
Jabbar Muhammad's coming for his job. And yeah, that's the easy one for me.
Gotcha. All right. So before we get out of here, you gave me a buy or sell that involved an NFL game. I'll just go one by one. Texans and Ravens. I got the Ravens winning and covering. What do you think?
I'm going to go with the Ravens winning, but not covering. The Ravens have not been a good playoff team in the last few years. Yeah. Lamar, and look, maybe they roll the Texans because of that, right? Like they explode and give the performance that people have been waiting for the Ravens to have for the last few years. You know, one of the big storylines of these NFL playoffs is the Lamar Jackson of the regular season going to be the Lamar Jackson of the postseason?
Right.
If the answer is yes, they very likely could win the Super Bowl. If the answer is no, all hell's going to break loose in the AFC, I think, at that point, because any of those four teams can make it if you're going to tell me that Baltimore is going to stub its toe like they've done in the last few seasons.
Yeah, that's fair. That's first game tomorrow at 3:30. Then Ketch, it's the game you and I really don't care about, Green Bay and San Francisco. I think the Niners are going to beat the Packers like the Cowboys should have, and I think they're going to cover that 9.5. What do you think?
I think the Niners win, but the Packers cover. I'm giving the Packers benefit of the doubt based on they've gone to Detroit for a Thanksgiving game and they've gone to Dallas for a playoff game. And in both instances, against the 2 and the 3 seed, made it. I think Green Bay may be the most underrated team still left in the NFL playoffs.
That's fair. All right. Tampa and Detroit, either Goff or Mayfield is going to go to the championship game.
It's Detroit.
I got Detroit, and I think they'll cover the 6.5.
I agree. I think Detroit wins by double digits.
What I don't like about that matchup for Tampa is the matchup. It's just a bad matchup. It was a 14-point game the first time this year. The Bucs know a little more about themselves now, but Ketch, those Lion receivers are such a bad matchup for the Bucs defensive backs. I think St. Brown and Reynolds are going to kill them.
And
tomorrow.
It is a short week, and they're traveling on the road on a short week. That's the kind of thing that a team as good as Detroit should take advantage of.
That's a good point, too. I hadn't thought about that. A lot of good energy in that house, and it'll be wonderful energy in Buffalo when the Mafia gets to show Patrick Mahomes what a true road atmosphere is like. Ketch, I'm going to take Kansas City plus 2.5. I'm going to make Buffalo prove it to me because Mahomes and Kansas City usually find a way. What do you think?
See, I'm going the opposite way, but for the same reasons. I am taking Buffalo because I think they've been playing really good football for the last 2 months. Kansas City's been kind of a dog at times. I mean, they've been okay. They haven't looked anything like a team that's going to win the Super Bowl. To go on the road to win in Buffalo means we get a version of the old Chiefs. It could happen, but I'm not betting on it to happen. So give me the Bills. Give me the Bills and the Ravens for a chance to go to the Super Bowl. And God help us, the Niners and the Lions.
Before we get out of here, let's bring in our man Blake, the super producer. He's a Kansas City Chiefs fan. Blake, do you have any last thoughts, any last feelings about the big one in Buffalo on Sunday afternoon?
Yeah, I said it last night on The Outsiders. I think it comes down to the final drive. I think it's going to be some fluky thing that happens, and everyone's going to talk about it for 6 months after the game is over.
It's entirely possible.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think it's going to be that close of a game, though. Like, really, final drive, one team's up by 3, another team's driving, and then it's going to be a missed field goal, a fumble, a bad flag. Something's going to happen.
So deep down, I've got your Chiefs by like 3-7, somewhere in there. What about you?
I got Chiefs by 3, and I'm predicting an Allen turnover on that last drive.
Yeah.
I'm going fighting chance Mox by 7.
Man, that'd be wild. We will see.
31-24.
31-24. We'd all love to see that. Just watching this game is going to be so much fun, especially for those of us that are not like Blake, that don't have a dog in this fight, not like Chance Mock, to get to sit back and watch it. Now, Ketch, here's the scary part for you, me, all Cowboys fans. Chad's throwing it out. Let's have the discussion. What does the Texans beating the Ravens and making the championship game do for all the Cowboys fans in the chat? What will Monday be like if the Texans are in the championship game?
I'm fine with it. Go Texans.
Ooh, I don't know if I can go Texans, but I could find a way to maybe be fine with it. But yeah, that'll be
I mean, I've been rooting for the Texans at the end of the season.
Yeah,
I like watching C.J. Stroud play. What I've realized is like my hate for the Texans is actually really limited.
Yeah. See,
it's been
because
a long time since they lost that first game. Like that's kind of gone away. I haven't had a Texans fan throw that in my face in a long time.
Plus, you do have the freedom, Ketch, of being a kid that grew up in what Texas City?
Waco.
See? That gives him the freedom. When you're not the Dallas or Houston area kid, you get to root for kind of whoever you want to.
Waco/Austin.
There you exactly. Waco/Austin, even more choices, right? He didn't have to choose. For us Dallas area folk, we can't root for those Houston teams. And the Houston area folk, trust me, they feel exactly the same way.
No, you're right. You're right.
I'm usually with you, Chad, but I'm also a DFW guy, and I like these Texans. They're just fun to watch.
All right. There's no reason to ruin. Don't ruin the pattern. Chad, I don't know what the answer to your question is. It's going to be a wild one, though. Cowboys fans may not be in the chat on Monday if the Texans are one game away from the Super Bowl.
All of the networks get one game this weekend. So it's nothing but number one crews. You get ABC, ESPN is Houston and Baltimore.
Yep.
So that's going to be Aikman and Big Head.
Wow. Yes.
He's got a massive head.
That's so weird.
Then you get Green Bay and San Francisco. That's on Fox.
Yeah. Olsen and what's his name?
Yep. It's the number one cruise.
Davis.
Sunday,
I think the last name. Yeah, go ahead.
It's Tampa Bay and Detroit on NBC.
Al and Chris.
Yep.
Al and Chris. Tarico and Chris.
And then on Sunday night, Romo and Nance on CBS.
It's gonna sound like a porno with as many grunts and groans as you're gonna get Sunday at 5:30. How many? Jim. You're gonna get tons of them. You're gonna think
the game that Romo did last week, where he was like, I didn't realize how good this guy was. And it was like, Tony, did you just say that out loud?
It was the Steelers game, and he didn't know Najee Harris was good. Wasn't that it? Wasn't that it?
He was like, Jim, we didn't even know. We turned the film on. It turns out this guy's good. It's like, Tony, you watch the NFL, right?
Everybody just remember on Sunday afternoon, there's not a man in your house having sex with a man named Jim. That's Tony Romo talking to Jim Nance about football. That's what's happening.
All right. I'll let that be the final comment for the day.
All right. We'll wrap it up. And thanks to Blake, the super producer, for his thoughts on his Chiefs and all his great work today. Thank you.
It says we have 420 in the chat right now. So on behalf of that,
there it is. Here we go. Oh, you've seen the logo. Now see the smoke. There it is. Thanks for liking, subscribing, and getting your notifications. And if you want to check out Rogue Shop, go ahead and click that QR code and find out what all the smoke is about. All right, no football with friends today. Apparently there's a technicality going on in the world of Alex Dunlap. Damn Wi-Fi and signals and things. Cockamamie internet. That's what's going on today. No football with friends, but go back to the Orange Bloods live page and check out all the old shows. Check out the modcasts from the week, the recruiting shows from the week. Thank you for doing that. And again, like, subscribe, get your notifications for everything we've got going on. Monday morning, 9 o'clock, will be the Overreaction Monday show with Anwar and Mr. Ketchum, that guy right there. If the Texans are one step away from the Super Bowl, this guy will tell you how he feels about it on Monday morning at 9 o'clock. Everybody have a great weekend. Take care of yourselves until high noon on Monday. We are House Divided.